But last night, it was supposed to be the marquee matchup of the week in the National Football League. Very high total. We're going to get a lot of points. And instead, we got a dud last night. Bad weather. I think that's probably one of the reasons why you see this final score of 12-6 yesterday, effectively putting the 49ers season to bed, and the Rams season marches on. San Francisco just had all kinds of problems offensively in the rain in their own building, especially in the first half. And the Rams did just enough in the second half to win the game, including some catches from Puka Nacua and some running from Kyron Williams. And Sean McVay, the head coach of the Rams, is pretty much aware his team has been doing it and winning in a lot of different ways. Last week it was on offense. This week it was on defense.
What a job by our group tonight. So much respect for the 49ers. And I think what's really cool is this team has found a bunch of different ways to be able to win football games. You come off a 44-42 game the other day, and then you win 12-6. And, our group did what they needed to do to be able to get it done. And the defense just felt like they were coming up with, stop after stop. What a pick by Darius Williams. What a great job by Kobe Turner getting a couple sacks. Really proud of Josh Carty to be able to go 4 for 4. We needed every single one of those. And then thought as the game went on, we really struggled offensively. The weather was definitely a factor early on in terms of some of the things that limited what we could do. It was a lot more of an issue than I think probably what would have been recognized on the TV or even if you're just in the stadium. But there were times when it did slow down. And I thought Matthew made the plays that he needed to make. I thought Kyron ran really tough. We were able to sustain some drives. It felt like we stayed a little bit more connected in the run game in the second half to be able to at least sustain possession and move the football, get some first downs, run some clock off. And like we know we'd love to be able to finish those with touchdowns in the red area, but the Niners, they did a great job defensively. There's going to be some great things we can learn from, but we'll take the win. And like I said, I'm really proud of this football team.
Yeah, really good run for the Rams now as they try and catch the Seattle Seahawks for the division. As far as San Francisco is concerned, a very dismayed Brock Purdy after the game seems to be defeated and coming under the realization that the 49ers probably not headed to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything, man. Like our season and our guys, trying to fight to get in this thing and fighting for each other, playing for each other, man. So, that's what comes with playing quarterback and being in this position. You're trusted with the ball in your hands and to make the right decisions in the right moment. And it's something, man, that I'm going to have to learn from for sure moving forward.
Sunday, everyone said you had to win out and that every game was a playoff game. What are you feeling right now?
I mean, obviously this one hurts. And I'm just trying to comprehend it really still. So don't really know what the whole picture looks like, but we have a lot of guys in the locker room, man, that are going to continue to fight, including myself, for this organization and for our fan base and for each other more than anything to finish out the season in the right way and focus on one game at a time and see where we're at the end of it. So,
at least for the time being, there's one player on the 49ers doesn't appear to be all in on the team. Devondre Campbell, defensive player for the 49ers, refused to enter the game in the third quarter for San Francisco. A very good player who they could have used in this one, for whatever reason, declined to enter. Second player we've heard about this. Deontay Johnson was the first one a couple of weeks ago. Campbell, after the game, not getting an endorsement from his head coach Kyle Shanahan and George Kittle, their starting tight end.
What happened with Devondre Campbell? He didn't play and he went into the locker room at some point?
Yeah, he said he didn't want to play today.
Play today?
Yep.
The coaching staff?
He did when I asked him why he didn't want to go in. So.
During the game or before?
No, that was in the third quarter.
Does that create dissension or disbelief or just disconnection on the sideline?
Not disbelief or disconnection like as a team. That is one person who just decided not to, play for his teammates. And I don't think that doesn't make our offense look at each other and be like, wow, man, we're falling apart. It's more of or like the defense, hey, we're falling apart. It's more of a one person making like Mooney said, a selfish decision. And I'm with Mooney on that. And I've never been around anybody that's ever done that. And I hope I'm never around anybody that does that again.
Really tough scene for the 49ers overall. Meanwhile, let's get to the National Basketball Association. The complaining from Steve Kerr got a look into a final play in the game against the Houston Rockets, but it looks like at least the NBA is saying that Kerr was incorrect. In the last 2-minute report confirmed, officials made the correct call when Jonathan Kuminga was assessed a personal foul on Jalen Green on a loose ball scramble. Houston wins 91-90 Wednesday night against Golden State. Steve Kerr can't like this one. The Celtics are now 20-5. They beat the Pistons 123-99. Tyler Hero had 23 points for the Heat last night against the Raptors. They win 114-104. Sacramento beats New Orleans 111-109. Domantas Sabonis had 32 points in their win yesterday. In tonight's NBA, no LeBron James once again. They're playing the Minnesota Timberwolves. LeBron is away from the team for personal reasons. Minnesota's 9-point favorites. The Cavs, 21-4 on the season. They're 17-point home favorites tonight against the Washington Wizards. Why? The Wizards are 3-19. The Pacers, 6-point underdogs on the road in Philadelphia. And MVP favorite Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets, 6.5-point road favorites against the Clippers. This weekend, the New Orleans Saints are making a quarterback change again. This time, Jake Haener is their starting quarterback this week, with Derek Carr being out of the game against the Washington Commanders. Garrett Bowles, left tackle for the Denver Broncos, has signed a 4-year, $82 million contract extension to stay in Denver. Odell Beckham Jr. is looking for a new team again. He and the Dolphins decided to part ways. And by the way, the Lions fan who taunted the head coach of the Green Bay Packers basically had his season tickets removed and can no longer attend games in Denver. This was about Matt LaFleur, and went after him during a game. Not a really good scene. Regardless, it's not what you want to do on the field. All right, the Heisman Trophy Awards coming up this weekend. Travis Hunter is expected to be the winner, and he was the big winner on College Football Awards last night. Hunter is the Associated Press College Football Player of the Year. He got 26 of the 43 votes from a panel of top 25 voters. He won the Walter Camp Award, the Chuck Bednarik Award. He's going to win the Heisman Trophy Award as well. Virginia Tech has fired their defensive coordinator, Chris Marve. They were 58th in total defense in the country. Arizona is going to hire a new offensive coordinator, Marshall's Seth Dodge. And Maryland's quarterback, Billy Edwards, says he is entering the transfer portal every single day. A new player seems to be headed to that transfer portal as well. Big rivalry game in college basketball last night. Iowa State taking on Iowa as the Cyclones were 6.5-point favorites. They win and cover the spread. They had a 52-point second half, a huge game for Curtis Jones. He had 23 points in the game. Texas beats New Mexico by a final of 91-67. And in the Big Ten battle between Nebraska and Indiana tonight, we'll see what ends up happening. Nebraska is 4.5-point favorites. Army's on the road against George Washington. The total is 49.5. Let's get to some headlines here from Tennessee. They're reporting some record-breaking sports betting numbers in 2024. Their gross handle increased to $594 million. That's 8.5% over previous months. $547 million handle in October also set a record-setting figure. Louisiana lawmakers are considering how to tax unregulated iGaming operators. iGaming is becoming supremely popular, and a lot of people are betting on it as well. Bet365's year in sports betting shows a major growth in women's sports, very specifically the arrival of Caitlin Clark and betting on the WNBA. Welcome back to Newswire here on SportsGrid. Sam McQuillan is with us from Legal Sports Report. We'll dive into the latest news on sports betting. By the way, over at LSR, that is legalsportsreport.com. You could read about all of these articles that we're going to talk about. Sam, great to have you here on this Friday, ahead of a big weekend, of course, in pro football. One big game in college football, but we're just a couple of weeks away from the biggest college football playoff that we have ever seen. 12 teams are going to go at this thing. Used to be 4. Used to be 2. Expanded playoffs means more money. And Sam, I'm guessing it means more wagering as well.
You're spot on, Craig. I wonder in a couple of years, will we be talking about a 24-team playoff, a 48-team playoff? Because it seems like you say, the more teams they add, the more money is involved. And of course, where there's more money involved, there's always more betting money. We've seen, sports books be a huge boom for the industry. So it's no surprise that they're expecting more money to be bet on college football this time of year than ever before. You have these marquee matchups now instead of these meaningless bowl games in the past that a lot of players would sit out or, opt out of in favor of the NFL draft or enter the transfer portal. Next week, you have SMU at Penn State, go Lions, Tennessee and Ohio State, Clemson and Texas. These are big matchups between big fan bases, which draw a lot of betting interest. And at the sports books, DraftKings is telling me that we're expecting more handle than ever because people are actually going to care about these games. And these teams really have a reason to play for. You know, you have more games just overall going from 3 playoff games to 11. That just increases the sheer number of games that you're betting on there. Then the format itself, you're going to have the 5 conference champions getting automatic bids as well. So those betting on those games was up as well versus just in the past. You've seen some teams even sit out of conference championship games or rest their players to stay healthy for the playoffs. At ESPN Bet, they told me that one of those games, Texas, Georgia, and then another one of those games, Penn State and Oregon, actually saw as much money, or even in some cases more money than is bet on an average NFL game. So we've seen this betting interest spike up. It's only going to continue into the playoffs. And you have more teams with a chance to win it all, which means more people are betting on the futures for different teams as opposed to just, 1, 2, or 3 teams. And even into Selection Sunday, there was a ton of interest because we didn't really know who would be playing who. We didn't know who would be making it, which obviously has a huge part in what ultimately happens at the end of the day. So sportsbooks are really happy with the expanded playoff. It seems like everybody else is so far. I'd imagine we're going to get more and more numbers continue to roll in as we approach the new year.
Yeah, and a lot of people like to predict futures and predict who's going to be where. It's a lot more difficult this year doing that, not knowing who's in the second round of a lot of these matchups. We just know the teams that got the first round bye, very similar to the NFL playoffs. All right, Pat and I talked about this story earlier in the week, Sam, and I know that we're going to expand on it as well. The notion that there's some antitrust lawsuit against DraftKings and FanDuel, or one potentially coming, really doesn't add up to me, Sam. I understand that they are the leaders in the industry, but naturally that doesn't mean that other companies can't get their footprint in. What's going on here with this potential hearing?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing to talk about right now. As you rightly point out, it didn't really add up at first, but now we're kind of hearing, at least I'm hearing, the climate around this in the industry, what people are thinking of it, is really changing a lot just over the past week. Originally it came out that the senators, who really have had no involvement in sports betting, were calling on a lame duck FTC and a lame duck DOJ to investigate these supposed antitrust claims from this one source document that this random Temple Law professor had sent out. And like you point to, Craig, other people have options to bet on different apps. There was really no evidence we've seen of this happening. But now a lot has changed. First of all, I'm told that there will be a couple of key witnesses at this hearing, one being NCAA President Charlie Baker, who, while he did sign the bill to legalize sports betting when he was governor in Massachusetts, he's been relatively critical, or at least outspoken, about its impact on student athletes, even calling on a lot of states to ban player prop betting on college athletes. You're going to have a Rutgers professor who's been critical of the industry testifying at this hearing, and someone from a company called Epic Global Solutions, which specializes in dealing with problem gambling. They employ a lot of people who are gambling addicts, recovering gambling addicts themselves, who have now worked really admirable to tell their story and use their story to work with leagues and sports books on solutions here. But I'm told from industry sources that nobody representing the industry itself has yet so far been invited to speak at this thing. So that kind of points us in the direction of maybe this is going to be a very critical hearing. You don't know what will come out of that. More has come out in terms of the picture at what the FTC will look like next year. Trump just appointed his new nominee. That nominee is a former staffer of one of the senators who called for this investigation. He also works for a law firm that does heavy work with one of DraftKings and FanDuel's chief competitors, which does not do sports betting. So that kind of leads us to maybe some breadcrumbs as to where this is exactly coming from. At the end of the day, we don't really know if it will amount to anything. It could, it might not, but it definitely seems to be more than we thought it was at this time last week. And I'm sure more is going to come out. Really excited to see, what flies during this hearing next week.
All right. Well, we'll update you on that next week here on Newswire. Now let's get the latest update on the upcoming Super Bowl. Sam, naturally, because more states become legalized, more people bet on the Super Bowl than ever before. That was the case last year. That was the case the year before. Is there any other reason to think that will change this year? Maybe some wrinkle or new way to bet on the Super Bowl that I'm unaware of? I feel like I've been doing long enough to know, even back when they used to print out those sheets at the Superbook, page 1, page 2, was page 20, just so many different options to bet. But really, in the end, it's more states being legalized and more ways to bet. That's why the numbers go up. Am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right, Craig. I think what's actually notable this year is that we will only have one more state added to the list this year. So in the past, you saw, 4 states, 10 states, a bunch of different states had launched since the past year, boosting numbers up. It's only North Carolina added to the mix this year, which it's a big state, but it's not enough to really, boom handle in and of itself. I think what you're going to see this year is, more ways to bet. More people betting, the rate at which people are betting going up as well. At Legal Sports Report, we've kind of used the historical data of what's happened in the past couple Super Bowls to indicate the growth. Last year, you had 1.38 billion bet, which was obviously a record. And this year, maybe it could reach about 2 billion. You have a lot of companies have talked about how they have gotten more out of their customers, especially in older markets as sports betting has progressed. We've certainly seen companies like FanDuel use it as a big marketing ploy. They have their Kick of Destiny. It's a huge opportunity for people to sign up because they give a lot of promotions and bonuses tied to the specific event, as opposed to a lot of, the run-of-the-mill $5, get 200 in bonus credit promos that they have done previously. I think what's really interesting, too, is last year, the public won on the money line, on the spread, on the total. It was all in the public's favor, but it was actually one of the best Super Bowls ever for sportsbooks because of the proliferation of player prop bets, same game parlays. So I'm really interested to see how that wrinkle fits in this year, where, the actual game outcome really does not have a significant impact. Last year's kind of the first year we saw that. So should be another interesting matchup this year, despite whoever's playing in it.
Yeah, and a lot of different props, and we have great coverage of it here, of course, at SportsGrid, fantasy shows, regular shows, and I'm sure you guys will be covering it over at LegalSportsReport.com. Sam, have a great weekend. Thanks again for coming on Newswire. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. You too, Craig.